We got 54,000 companies. Everything that can go wrong has gone wrong.
If you're wondering how to implement zero trust architecture and application deny by default technologies in your business, you're going to want to hear this conversation. We're joined today by Danny Jenkins, CEO at ThreatLocker, to discuss ThreatLocker, zero trust architecture, new features being rolled out and announced at Black Hat, and many, many more topics of interest. So stay tuned. This is going to be great. Danny, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. So for those who don't know ThreatLocker already, Danny, what is ThreatLocker and what's it doing for the market?
So essentially, we're an endpoint protection platform, or actually even beyond the endpoint in many cases. But what we're really focused on is how can we secure your environment using a default deny approach rather than a default allow approach. And that's our mission, is to change the market from this, hey, we're going to let the whole world run anything they want, and we're going to try and find malware where we can, to run what you need to run. Everything else is irrelevant. And that's really going to change the paradigm of security.
100%. So what are the specific CISO pain points that you hear CISOs complaining about that ThreatLocker, really hammers home?
Well, so I think the pain point that we actually solve is really just cyber attacks, ransomware, shadow IT, everything that makes you weak as a company. The concern is this going to make my life miserable and hard? And that's really where we started. And it's the idea that this is the right way to do it, but it's too hard. So what ThreatLocker did is go out and say, well, why is it hard? Well, Windows updates, Office updates, Chrome's update, all these applications keep updating. So let's solve that problem. And we realize that requires a lot of work, but they're the same apps. So we just do the work once and it becomes an economy of scale thing. So we have nearly 10,000 plus apps. So we have full details of every single update on, so you don't even think about it. And 40,000 apps where we have partial data on. So you just deploy an agent, it figures out what you run, it tells you the apps, it tells you what countries it's in, and then you lock it down. The approval's easy, management's easy, and now you're getting less alerts on your SOC. You've got no IT problems because people aren't breaking their laptops anymore. And more importantly, you're not getting ransomware.
So you always advocate default deny versus default allow, which is kind of like more traditional, like what we see at organizations. How do you change that mindset that's so ingrained in, basically cybersecurity and IT traditionally, of this is the way we do it?
So there's two things we have to achieve, really. And bear in mind, we have 54,000 companies today that block by default in ThreatLocker. And that's gone from 0 5 or 6 years ago. So, and when we started, every investor we spoke to, the accelerator we went through, told us we should ditch and go to EDR, because we have essentially an agent that can change our mindset. And I was like, there's a million EDRs and they're not working. Otherwise, we wouldn't see hotels like the MGM get hit by ransomware, because you think they don't have great EDRs. So what we did is we said, we've got to make it easy. So the first thing we have to do, there's two things we have to do. One is show them that it's the right solution. The next thing is show them it's easy. And it's very easy. We do a POC with them most of the time. We actually go in, do a longer POC where required. We'll do simulations of this is what's going to happen, get blocked in this period. This is what's going to get blocked. And people think it's going to be really bad. I've taken 70,000 endpoints and locked them down in 12 weeks. And in 50, 60 man hours of work on 70,000 endpoints. And people are, wow, I couldn't even deploy an EDR that quickly.
Yeah.
So, and suddenly they get less SOC alerts. Their security team's freed up. Their IT team's freed up because they're not dealing with users installing crap on their laptop, and everything gets streamlined. So it's just really proving it, but also reinforcing why it's so important to them. So we do hacking labs and we do demonstrations of, look, this script just didn't get sent in by CrowdStrike.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot better than just like a pamphlet or something. Like showing the actual sauce and having it work is powerful beyond anything else, right? You can say as much as you want. When you show it, that's really where the power is, right?
Yeah, and that's why one of the things we did from the beginning was free POCs, as many endpoints as you want on the POC to figure out, are you comfortable with this? We know we have a 99.96% monthly renewal rate. That's better than any other EDR in this hall today. And that's because people not only see the value on it, they know that if they remove it, look at all this crap that we block that we're not going to block in the future.
Yeah. So zero trust architecture is it was a big buzzword, and identities are the new perimeter and such. ThreatLocker does play in that zero trust architecture space. What are you seeing as far as either misunderstandings that CISOs have with zero trust architecture, or misunderstanding the challenges of getting onto a zero trust architecture platform?
So zero trust essentially is really about give access where access is required, least privilege. That's what it means. Remember the cloud used to be called hosting? now it's called the cloud. Least privilege is now called zero trust. And we actually pushed back a little bit on the marketing at the beginning. We didn't put it on our original 3 years of marketing. And the reason being is I think sometimes buzzwords fade out and disappear. And what we call it is irrelevant. What matters is we're denying by default and we're allowing by exception. I think the big things that people often think about with zero trust is that it's ZTNA, which is essentially a replacement for VPN. It's not. It's a methodology of I'm only going to grant access where access is required.
So I've seen this so many times in my career of getting super hyped up about a new project, a new technology, the rollout. And then once it's rolled out, you don't get that operational support necessarily. What have you seen as far as, or what would you advise as far as like best practices for keeping that ongoing operational maintenance of a zero trust architecture platform like ThreatLocker or others?
So I think the first thing is we're very, very good at making sure we onboard our customers. So part of our package is you come to us, we do your onboarding. It depends on how many endpoints you have. If you've got 500 endpoints, you'll probably do a call a week for 5 weeks. And we'll go through every step. We'll make sure you're locked down, and then we'll put you on a monthly cadence, and we'll go through and make sure everything's being maintained. And that's always been one of the reasons our customers are so successful, because we offer that. We also back it up with 24-hour service based out of our Orlando office, 365 days a year. Someone can just get on a Zoom call at 2 a.m. in the morning and say, hey, help me with this. Look at this for me. Is this wrong?
Yeah, that level of ongoing support, I have to imagine, definitely contributes to that high 90s retention renewal rate of your clients. Like that level of support is amazing.
Absolutely, because if something's wrong, we fix it.
Yeah.
But then also, that's where we have to start figuring out where people are making mistakes. When you implement a proper zero trust architecture, when you actually say, I'm thinking about this, the way a breach happens most of the time in a endpoint server environment is something runs in the environment. So someone runs a remote access tool, a piece of malware, something runs. Or they misuse a product like PowerShell and they'll use fileless malware or Redshift. If you say nothing can run that isn't trusted, and you say PowerShell can only see what it needs to, and Office can only see what it needs to, the other way is someone that has an open network port. So we're making sure that we close ports, we only open them dynamically. Take those attack vectors away. In theory, no one's getting into your environment at all. So you've got 54,000 companies. I'd like to say we've never had a customer with ransomware, but that's not true. And the reason being is, though, configuration becomes the next challenge. Did they turn it off? Was it in learning mode? Did they buy it and then get tied onto another project and not actually flick the switch? So we a few years ago, we changed our default. So when you turn on ThreatLocker, it defaults to after 21 days, a lockdown. So if you just ghost us after buying it, it'll lock down unless you call us and say, I want to extend it. Or you go in and you can extend it in the portal yourself. But also that's where we've been focusing on new tools and new features recently to make sure you know where your configurations are bad.
So, as if you were my co-host, that was a great segue, Danny. So here at Black Hat 2025, you announced a new feature in the ThreatLocker platform called Defense Against Configuration, or DAC. What exactly is DAC? You've called it a vulnerability scanner on steroids. How is it different than a vulnerability scanner, and what is its key features?
I'm not even sure. I mean, vulnerability, it's looking for vulnerabilities, but I don't think we're trying to go after a vulnerability scanner market here, and we're not charging for it. It's a free feature. And there's actually an internal name that we called it, which is dumbass configurations.
Okay.
There's a reason for this. You can't if you do everything right, you're not going to get hacked. But every time someone gets hacked, it's because they did something wrong. So we started off saying, let's build a feature that checks all of the ThreatLocker configurations and make sure it's right. The second thing we did is said, well, okay, if we're checking the ThreatLocker configurations, why don't we check the Windows configurations and the Office configurations? And have you got macros enabled? Are you enabling TLS? So we're actually checking 170 checks on every endpoint every day to check if it's configured what we revise against. And we give it a criticality to low, medium, high, or critical. And we're going to send you an email. You can go into the portal every day, see your trends. We're going to send you an email every week and saying, this is your current status. We're also going to map it all to compliance, because one of the things that a lot of technology people, a lot of IT people aren't very good at is pitching to their managers. So they need to go in, I need to put some time into this. I need to spend some money on this. And it's not all ThreatLocker stuff. It's other tools. Like we'll say you've got an open port on your external firewall. We'll say that you have Windows policies configured wrong. When you go into a manager and you say it's the right thing to do, quite often that doesn't, or CFO, it doesn't fly. when you go in and say, it's the right thing to do, so we give you all of the information. This is how many ransomware attacks happened as a result of this. This is the result. Also, NIST 800-171, NIST cybersecurity framework, CIS controls, HIPAA, all require this to be implemented like this. You get a lot more credibility. So we're going to show you what's wrong, how to fix it, and in many cases, we can fix it in minutes within ThreatLocker, and why it needs to be fixed, and then also align that to compliance.
Yeah, and I can certainly see, being able to use those, frameworks and those I guess, regulations certainly goes far with the business side of the house, because they may not know what CMMC is, but they definitely know that they heard they're going to need it in order to bid on contracts or win government work in the future. So having that same terminology, I think, definitely is going to help the practitioners be able to sell it to their C-suite, basically. Now, you mentioned that it's not a vulnerability scanner. You're not going for the vulnerability scanner market. I'm curious, what was it internally at ThreatLocker that caused you guys to think that this DAC needed to exist, or that spurred that it was an idea that you guys wanted to implement?
It was a constant flow. I mean, like I said, we got 54,000 companies, so you can imagine everything that can go wrong has gone wrong. But it's a constant flow of people making the same mistakes, not doing things right. So at first, what we did is we got our account managers to email customers saying, we need to get you on a call. We see some configuration issues. And they were the high-level basic ones. And they were just looking for, hey, have you got machines unsecured? A lot of people not coming on calls, then they get hit by an attack. They've ignored us. And so we said, well, we got to make it so they're literally being told every week very clearly in English. Not because a lot of time I'd call the customer and I'll say, well, look, the account manager emailed you 6 times in the last year and they've called you. And they, yeah, but they're just trying to spam me. No, they're not. They literally they don't get paid on you getting on a call with them. They do lose money if you churn because you get ransomware. And so by changing it into a technical thing, it means customers are going to get this report every week in their email, and they have to choose to ignore this now. They have to say, I'm ignoring the fact that you've told me something seriously wrong with my system. And it makes it more important for them. And that's really our thinking. We see these errors over and over again. Let's check for them. And part of building those checks out, and we're going to continue to add. So 170 is our first release. We're going to extend it into Office 365, Microsoft. We're going to add more checks. We went through tens of thousands of support tickets and looked what people did wrong, and then added those in checks.
I love it. It's like really research that's grounded in reality versus what you guys either, download a baseline of like, these are the best settings or whatever. It's really the configurations that are leading to issues in your client base. That I think it's absolutely brilliant that you did that. Another interesting thing that I noticed with DAC is that it can identify dormant admin accounts. What was it about that was like, such a critical visibility need or gap that you guys saw from your perspective?
So we have an MDR service in ThreatLocker as well. So we have our endpoint protection, which is focused on zero trust. We've got endpoint detection, which actually is really cool because you can automate zero trust replies to potential threats. So rather than you saying, oh, I get an alert, it goes to my SOC and my SOC better run fast, we can say you got an alert, it's gone to your SOC. But in the meantime, we've disabled all admin tools on the server to give you a head start.
Yeah.
And so but one of the nice things about the MDR team is we get to see how these people are getting in. And quite often, in a large portion of time, we would see old admin accounts that people didn't know being used.
That's absolutely huge. And I'm actually kind of curious. I mean, when you contact your clients and let them know that you've discovered these like massive vulnerability. I mean, essentially it's a vulnerability. It's not a technical vulnerability in the true sense of like a software bug, but having dormant admin accounts that are active is pretty...
it's creating vulnerabilities in your system, yes. Yeah. And it's interesting because you use the word vulnerability scanner. ThreatLocker has always never gone and found a product. And it's one of the challenges we have actually, because we're not looking to fit into a category on a Gartner quadrant. Mm-hmm. We're looking to solve a problem. And where every product we built, ring fencing doesn't exist anywhere else. Whitelisting barely exists and certainly doesn't exist at a level. The fact that we will report on foreign software doesn't exist. And when we did this, we didn't go out and say, let's build, someone's got a vulnerability scanner, let's create one. We said, no, we got a problem, we got to solve the problem. What's the smartest way to solve the problem? And now people are trying to fit it into buckets. Yeah. And say, no, we're looking for the vulnerabilities and we're saying, this is the problem that you have.
Yeah, I appreciate that because it's actually really focused on the client or the customer or the problems that we have versus, like you said, trying to build something that you can get in that top right and be able to sell it essentially, right? Like your product sells itself because it's so powerful and so effective.
Yeah, at some point, Gartner will create a quadrant based on our technologies. and look, that's going to happen. We got some of the biggest companies in the world using us now.
Yeah.
We've got mid-sized businesses, small businesses using us. We really have this huge spectrum, and that's not being ignored. Like, we're one of the fastest growing cyber companies in the world, and that's because we're solving problems rather than trying to fit into a box and repeat a better version, a better mousetrap.
Yeah. So one topic that basically is in every conversation at some point is AI. It's absolutely transforming every business, every organization. It's being used, every country, everywhere. How are you in your seat seeing AI change kind of the threat landscape from an attacker's perspective? And also, how are you seeing it kind of impact the cybersecurity, basically product industry?
So I think there's two categories to AI as well. I think there's what has spiked the AI, if you like, epidemic, which is LLMs, generative AI. And that's what people are thinking. And then there's what is being redefined as AI in many cases, just like hosting was redefined as the cloud, least privileged, where we're seeing what used to be considered advanced engineering and advanced algorithms is now being defined as AI. So, for example, in ThreatLocker, since day one, we learn how an app is supposed to behave based on millions of endpoints using the app, so we can create good policies to allow it. Today, that's now called AI. When we built it, it wasn't called AI. Generative AI is now what is obviously sparking this whole excitement about artificial intelligence. And we took a different approach. Not everyone here, but there's a lot of companies here that are using AI to try and reduce costs. And, I use AI to compose emails. My emails to investors have got far more polite and wordy since the introduction of ChatGPT. Whereas before I gave them 3 lines, now I give them a much nicer feeling. But generative AI also allow attackers are using for creating malicious code. Now, how does generative AI change the threat surface area? Someone asked me, well, it doesn't change the surface area of attack. It's the same. What it changes how many people can generate that attack. You ever got locksmiths go to your house, they pick your lock, they get you in your house, they change your lock. I can't pick a lock. Most people can't pick a lock, but locksmiths can. So locks are clearly vulnerable because they can be picked. That's what computers were like. Computers were purely vulnerable because only 2 million people could write software, but they were always vulnerable. But the people who were writing software, there's probably more than 2 million, was relatively limited in the scope. Now, if tomorrow anyone could pick a lock, the lock would now be useless. And that's what's happened with AI. We've gone from millions of developers to billions of people who can now write malware. So the number of attackers has rapidly increased, which is, of course, a really big advantage for those who are adopting zero trust, because now they don't care if it's good or bad. It's just being blocked. The other area where we're using it is not to reduce costs. And that's where it's a big mistake. You should always focus on how do I make the best product. So, and here's a good example. We have a web filtering system. Block adult sites, block malicious sites. And we have humans looking at URLs and determining if they're malicious or not malicious, or they're adult sites or gambling or dating sites or whatever they may be. Humans have somewhere between a 99% and 99.4% accuracy rate on determining a site category. And the rest of the time, so that 0.6%, they're failing. I look at AI. Now, my hope was I look at AI and it comes back with a 99.8% accuracy, but it doesn't. It comes back with a 70% accuracy. Very confidently wrong. Let's just say, for argument's sake, it came back with a 98% accuracy. My mindset would not be change the humans to AI. My mindset would be combine them, as it has been with the 70%. So now I'm combining a result from AI with a human result. If they match, I've now got more like a 99.9% accuracy. If they don't match, that has to go to third independent review to decide which type of site is it. And that's where AI can be really useful, not for validating, certainly not for detecting, not for creating and replacing people, certainly not for detecting threats, but for validating information.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you that it is super powerful as a tool for a human to move faster and execute better, but certainly not as a replacement. Also, there's a lot of hype with AI, right? Like a lot of, there's clearly these use cases that look interesting and businesses are pushing them as like, one click and it does everything. So I think a measured approach really is the right way to handle this with AI. And I love that you guys were doing it from day one and just kind of like the same way you were doing ThreatLocker, not really in a special quadrant or try to have a better, mousetrap, like you said. It's really, you're just focused on the problem, just like you weren't focused on trying to shoehorn AI into your technology.
No, AI is We look at a problem. If AI is the most effective way to solve it, then we should use AI. If it's not, we should find what's the most effective way to solve it.
So ThreatLocker, obviously you guys have a huge footprint, tens of thousands of customers. If someone wanted to like explore it or understand what it is, like what is the best way to like onboard, just initially getting your foot in the door?
I mean, the best thing to do is just literally reach out to us, schedule a demo. We'll walk you through the platform. We'll do like a 45-minute walkthrough. Technically, I could spend 15 hours showing you how cool the platform is, but we'll give you a high level. And if it's something you're interested in, then we do a free POC. We let you trial it. We let you see what's in your environment, not a fake dedicated environment that's clean. In a messy, nasty environment that's got loads of software and complicated apps. And we got some of the biggest airports in the world and banks and manufacturing companies. So we've seen it all before. Finance companies. We'll show you in your environment. We'll show you the software running. Doesn't cost you anything. Takes a few hours of your time.
Awesome. We've been talking with Danny Jenkins, CEO at ThreatLocker. Go to threatlocker.com to check out the demo that he's talking about. Thank you very much, Dan.
Thank you.
All right, cheers.